Have you ever stared at a fishing net and wondered, how on earth are these made? You might imagine it's all done by machines these days, and that's partially true. But did you know many fishermen around the world still craft their nets by hand? It's a skill passed down through generations, a delicate balance of patience, precision, and practicality. We'll explore how these essential tools of the trade are made, step by step, right here on History of Simple Things. Before we get into the how, let's quickly talk about the why. Nets have been around for thousands of years. Archaeologists have found fishing net weights dating back to 8000 BC. That's right, net fishing is ancient. Back then, fishermen made nets from plant fibers like flax, hemp, or even tree bark. Over time, animal sinew and cotton were used too. It wasn't until the 20th century that synthetic materials like nylon and polyester took over. The core idea, however, hasn't changed. A grid of knots or loops that trap fish while letting water flow through. The design is beautifully simple and surprisingly effective. Modern nets are typically made of synthetic materials, especially nylon monofilament or multi-filament twine. Why nylon? It's strong, lightweight, resistant to rot, and can withstand salt water. Basically, it ticks every box. You'll also find polyester, polyethylene, and polypropylene, each with slightly different properties depending on the fishing environment and target species. But whether you're making a large trawl net or a small cast net, it all starts with string, lots of string, and the process is part craft, part engineering. To make a fishing net, you only need a few simple tools, but don't be fooled. Mastering them takes serious skill. First, there's the netting needle, also called a shuttle. It holds the twine and lets the maker weave it efficiently. Then, there's the mesh gauge or mesh stick. This tool determines the size of the holes or mesh in the net. It's what keeps the pattern consistent. Too large and fish might slip through. Too small and you waste material or catch species you don't want. Finally, you'll need a cutting tool for trimming and shaping, and sometimes gloves for protection, especially with rougher cords. All right, let's walk through how a fishing net is actually made by hand. Step 1. Preparing the twine. First things first, you load the netting needle with twine. The twine is wrapped around the shuttle in a figure-8 pattern, so it feeds out smoothly without tangling. Step 2. Creating the first row. This is usually the hardest part. You tie a series of loops over a rod or rope, using your mesh gauge to space them evenly. This creates the top row known as the head rope. Step 3. Knotting the mesh. Using a special knot, usually a sheet bend or overhand knot, you tie each row beneath the last. The mesh stick helps ensure that every loop is the same size. Step 4. Expanding the net. As you work your way down, the net gets wider. For circular nets like cast nets, you'll add loops strategically to expand the diameter. For gill nets or trawl nets, the mesh remains fairly uniform. Step 5. Shaping and finishing. Once the desired size and shape is achieved, the net is cut to size and attached to a frame, rope, or weights. Floats may be added to the top and lead sinkers to the bottom to ensure it sinks properly. The result? A functional, handmade fishing net that's both beautiful and practical. Not all nets are created equal. The design depends on the type of fish, the body of water, and the method of fishing. Let's go over a few common types. Gill nets. These are vertical panels of netting that trap fish by their gills. They're typically set in place and retrieved later. Cast nets, thrown by hand and circular in shape, these are used in shallow waters. Trawl nets. Massive nets towed behind boats, capturing schools of fish in the open ocean. Seine nets. Long nets used to encircle fish, either pulled by hand or boat. Lift nets, lowered into the water and lifted when fish swim above them. Each net has a slightly different construction method, but the core principles remain the same: precision, strength, and adaptability. You might be thinking, why does any of this matter today? Isn't this all replaced by factories and mass production? Well, yes and no. In developing regions and even among hobbyist or artisanal fishers, handmade nets are still incredibly important. They're cheaper, customizable, and repairable. More than that, net making is a cultural practice. In coastal villages around the world, from India to Ghana to Norway, you'll find people sitting in the shade, repairing their nets, passing knowledge from one generation to the next. It's not just about catching fish, it's about self-reliance, tradition, and craftsmanship. These nets tell stories, not just of survival, but of connection to the sea, to family, and to heritage. Every knot tied by hand carries a bit of history, a trace of the person who made it, and the community it supports. In many places, the rhythm of net making is woven into daily life, marking time and seasons just as surely as tides do. So the next time you see a fishing net, take a second to appreciate the skill behind it. Each net is part of a long legacy of innovation and hard work. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.